And we are live with episode 37 of the PHU Dynasty podcast. Today I have two guests with me. I got good old co-host Sean O'Shea of the Long Gamers, and then back for another appearance is Muskegon Muskrats general manager Alex Morales. Back, I think the last time he was on, it was the Power Rankings podcast, I want to say. And I guess we could probably address that if you wanted to. Maybe how those power rankings end up shaking out as it stands right now.
So I'll be honest, and I wish that I had really had made this a point beforehand because I know we were having that rivalry with Vince, and I wanted to rank his team lower, but I felt like if I did that, it would just look more like I was just being biased and purposely trying to throw him under the bus. So I didn't, and I regret now because it's the what is he, the seventh place team at the moment, and he got to win against Dan. So I'll give him that, but it's not looking too good for him. And I know he wanted to use the injury narrative, but we want to talk about what's his face on Denver, Javonte Williams. He wasn't really playing well before the injury, so where was where? I don't know how that was really affecting his team to begin with, but that's just my personal take.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, the Vince's team obviously has had the injuries, but there's been some disappointing guys. I would consider Debo to be a disappointment as well, coming off of his number two, I think, wide receiver season last year. I don't even think he's even close to that this year. So there's definitely some disappointing guys. And then, of course, Aaron Rodgers and Cousins both aren't really anything special, which is I thought Rodgers would hold up, but that has not happened. So
I,
I
I
think
did mention that in the podcast that
I believe you did, and I butted back on it, but I was wrong. So
Right.
I tried, Vincent.
I'm pretty sure in our season preview we were both like okay, Cousins is going to be his top quarterback this year, and it
Yeah.
felt weird to say, but now you just feel like it's just like a foregone conclusion that he's going to have to start him every week if the matchups are like similar.
And I'm not even happy to say that, because it was going to be the number one quarterback. Like, I feel bad in a sense. It shouldn't be that way, but
I don't like that.
I like it.
It is what it is. Well, for this podcast, we've officially reached the halfway point in the season, and frankly, I don't know where the first 7 weeks of this season went. It's been insanely fast, but we are here, and we have the standings up right now, and we can quickly go through the standings as it stands here at the midpoint season. We got Philadelphia Lamppost at 6-1. Don't think anybody's super surprised about that.
Shocking.
The Baton Rouge Bombers also at 6-1, and not that far behind in points. He's not close because Dan is at 1080, but he's up 100 points almost. But the Bombers are very respectably in second place at this point. I think after a huge 200-point performance on the Armadillos last week, totally unnecessary. Could have used it on a different team, perhaps.
Have you had like three different teams go above 175 or 150 on you already this year?
At least a couple,
Sure.
and I think Tibbs has also had a couple of beatdowns as well, just unnecessarily. And I know Dustin has as well. He's gotten some big ones against him. So everybody's beating up on the shitty teams here. And then we have the Battle Axes at 5-2 in third place. And then we enter the Muck, and the Muck is the Los Angeles Lambs at 4-3, the Muskrats at 4-3, and the Long Gamers now at 4-3. And then Vince's team outside of the playoff picture right now at 3-4 at seventh place, and the Elk, Cheese Fries, and Armadillos in the Tank Bowl at 1-6. So it's been a very interesting first half of the year. I think a lot of our power rankings, perhaps and especially Alex's, are pretty accurate at this point from earlier on in the season. I think we all kind of knew what these teams were going to look like. But I didn't think the Muck would be without the Bombers. I thought the Bombers might be in the Muck again, but they're outperforming my expectations. So I'm proud to say that I betted on them, and Dynabook hopefully will not receive my money for that one. You guys have any thoughts on the standings as it stands right now at the midpoints?
I'm still just disappointed that you didn't bet the over on yourself.
I
Oh, yeah.
I didn't believe.
I believe.
I didn't believe at all. I really thought I was going to lose every game. I think the smart odds would have been to do it though. I mean, it's hard to lose every game, even if the problem is I didn't think the Elk would also be tanking. That was my real problem. I didn't think I'd now have to go against 2 tanking teams. It's 4 opportunities. So, okay, so let's get into the midseason awards. We've laid out, I think, at least 10 to 15 different awards to go through. And this is kind of a little bit of everything. We're going to talk about each individual team MVPs and then some other categories that I've created. So let's go ahead and start with this one. And it's the first half dynasty MVP. So this is, the overall player that you think has earned the first half dynasty MVP. I will go ahead and start this one because I think we might have similar ones for this. I think this player has been very integral into the team's success. And frankly, it was probably one of the team's biggest risks when acquiring him this offseason. And it's Nick Chubb from the Muskrats. I think he has earned the first half dynasty MVP in my book because, obviously he's RB1, but he's doing it on basically half the touches that everybody else is doing it. I mean, he's getting 17 carries a game. He's only getting like 50% of the snap share there still. And he's basically been RB1 every single week. And he's got to be the most consistent player on the Muskrats offense right now. So, Alex, do you feel similarly? Is this your first half MVP as well, or do you have somebody different?
No, I was actually not expecting that, and I feel pretty good about that. That you feel that way.
Everybody knows I'm a Chubb supporter. Too, so.
I'm glad I have him on the team for sure. No, Chubb's been spectacular. I think other than one game that was, what you would say, mediocre compared to what he's done this season. He's been nothing short of fantastic on my roster. The guy I actually picked is one of your favorite players, which is where I thought you were going, was Travis Kelce.
Oh man!
And
I love me some Kelce.
I was, before the beginning of the season, I was down on the Kansas City Chiefs offense. I thought that him being the only target that they had, that a lot of defenses were going to focus on him, and it was going to make the offense kind of stall out a lot of the times. But I thought Tyreek Hill was, a big integral piece for that offense. But apparently I was wrong. Both things could happen where Tyreek Hill could still be successful somewhere else, and Travis Kelce could still flourish in the Kansas City Chief offense. Right now he stands at obviously tight end 1. If he was a wide receiver, he would be this wide receiver 2 overall in fantasy points. And outside of the first 4 tight ends and fantasy points overall, he from tight end 5 down, he has double the amount of points within tight end 5.
That's insane.
Right. Random thought. Do you guys know who the tight end 3 is right now in scoring?
Oh, yeah, Taysom Hill.
That is sad. I think Will Dissly's in the top 10 still.
I picked him up.
He's got like 3 touchdowns. That's good enough.
Yeah, he had like 2 in the first week and hasn't done anything since.
I saw that and I had to sprint and pick him up because I was blown away by that.
No, I already addressed that, James. Calm down. I'm sorry.
Hey, the listeners have questions, okay?
Listen.
Sean, who's your first half dynasty?
It's the best player on the best team. It's Josh Allen.
I mean, I was gonna choose Josh Allen, but I was like, man, that's a cop out. Of course, he's the MVP. Like, he's the best player.
Sorry, the MVP award is a cop out because he's the best player.
I was trying. Listen, I was trying to,
Let me get all creative over here and pick.
I didn't want to pick just Chuck. Okay. I understand. I get it.
Chubb. Listen,
I love Nick Chubb.
Dan's only losses because of bye week for Josh Allen. He's on a bye and he's still the number 2 overall player in fantasy. Like,
it's pretty insane.
He plays, Dan wins. That's it.
And he was also missing Dalvin and Justin Jefferson on top of that.
He's a top 12 RB and a top 1 quarterback. And
to me, all 3 of the guys we chose could easily been the MVP. I think now that I'm listening to the arguments, like Kelce, if he's really wide receiver 2, I mean, that's just insane. Like,
yeah.
I mean, we were kind of questioning, I guess. Well, I don't know if we were questioning, but we were, interested that Dan would make the move already having Mark Andrews on the roster. But when he's putting up those kind of numbers every single week, there's nothing to argue at all. I mean, it was basically you just acquired a wide receiver one. It's that simple. All right, let's go to the next category. And the next one I had on my list was the biggest first half bust. And I will let Alex kick this one off.
Ooh. So sorry, Sean. This is you're not gonna like this one too much. I have Jonathan Taylor as my bust. This is a guy in redraft being drafted as the number 1 running back overall. And right now he's averaging about 10 fantasy points a game, which puts him at a mid RB3. And
he's already 24. Right.
Well, averaging points per game because he's missed a couple games and whatnot. So I kind of go with totals and averages depending on the player if they miss games or whatnot. But yeah, either way, it's not what you should be expecting from your top running back and one of your integral pieces to your team. So not to say that it can't turn around. Sam Ellinger is going to be an interesting start. I really wanted to grab him. I know Eric got there first. But, yeah, let's see if the Colts can turn it around the second half of the season because it's not looking good for a guy that was supposed to be touted as the top running back in the league.
Yeah, I mean, they've turned the ball over the most in the NFL, too. Running backs are the ones that feel like they probably end up suffering the most when your team is very turnover prone because you're definitely playing from behind and your drives are stalling out because you don't have the ball. So, and the injury. So I think the worst has happened. Like, I mean, God forbid, like an injury or whatever. But he's so talented still that I think we're going to be all right. We're going to be okay. But it's been a rough few weeks. So, but yeah, no argument here. I actually thought about it. So
yeah, he was in consideration for me as well. Sean, who was yours?
Oh, cue it up, buddy.
I'm queued for whatever you got.
Oh well, it's
Harris.
Okay. it's Najee Harris.
Najee Harris.
Similar to what Alex was saying, Najee was a first-round RB in whatever draft, honestly, any format that you do, whether it's Dynasty Startup or a redraft league this year. He's probably going as like RB like 5 or 6 off the board, and he's like, their offense is anemic to start the year. They couldn't move the ball, and he's suffered. He's gotten hurt a little bit, similar. Even in the game he got hurt, he had like 15 opportunities. He had like 30 yards before he got injured in that game. So it's just been rough. Rough goings in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I had him in redraft last year, and it seemed like every week he was pretty much a lock for 10 points, and it is not the case this year. I mean, the production's down because, frankly, the offense just sucks, and then the line hasn't got any better. And
the biggest difference is that his targets are like they're just down. Really.
Yeah, I mean, he had a 14 catch game, I think, last year, and this year he hasn't even sniffed like 5. It's crazy. All right, so my biggest first half bust, I'm sad to say it because I love the team so much, is Kyle Pitts. He has frankly done nothing. I think he's still somehow in the top 10 at the tight end position. I'm going to quickly confirm that. But just from the expectations, and everybody knows how talented he is, to get this level of production out of such a talented player, it just hurts. It stinks. And he's definitely not in the top 10. He's tight end 23, which is absurd for somebody with his talent. He's started the year with 1.9, 1.9, 8, 2, 7, 0.9 this past week. 0.9. Three catches on 9 yards. It's so bad. And it's crazy because the Falcons just keep on trudging along even though they don't really use him. And they just seem to be working out. I mean, I thought the Falcons would be way worse this year. So they're just doing it without him.
Do you think if they make a quarterback change at all throughout the year that would help him?
I don't think so. I think it's the offense, man. I just think they run such a weird.
They just decoy him out there.
Yeah, I think they just use a lot of motion. They use a lot of play action, and like none of it really involves him, which makes no sense in my head, but seems to be
What's
translating.
confusing to me is, are they decoying him and Drake London at the same time? Because neither of them have done anything like the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think London had like 9 yards last week too. Like he didn't do shit either. He had actually had 9 yards as well. Yeah, the last 4 weeks, Drake London has not had over 5 points.
What is the
So
purpose of taking a receiver and a tight end in the first round of the NFL draft if you're not going to utilize them?
I just wonder if it's. I mean, I agree with you, but I think it's more or less they just don't trust Mariota to do anything, and they're just running this run first heavy offense where they don't rely on him to do anything. And I understand that, and it could also be part of the tank game. Maybe they're not choosing to run set offense where they're just wide open and just blasting people down the field because they might actually win games, and that's probably not what they want to do. I don't know. It seems like Arthur Smith wants to win though, so
They're tied for first, aren't they?
I think they're doing really well. Yeah,
I would think so. Yeah.
they run the ball well. So, wow, here's a crazy stat. Mo Alley Cox and Jelani Woods have more fantasy points than Kyle Pitts. Not even combined.
Ow.
But they both have 26 points, and Kyle Pitts has 24. Also, 24 for Darren Waller. That could be another bust you could throw in there as well, but that's a bonus bust. All right, let's go to the next category, and this one is biggest rookie surprise. Sean, you can start this one off.
I'm going to go with Kenneth Walker because he's really freaking good.
Yeah.
He's been, like, he got the opportunity and he took it and literally ran away with it.
But were you really surprised by it? Is it he was a top pick for our.
I think because I thought the offense was going to be so bad in Seattle that I just thought like he was going to be running with like a 20-point deficit like every game. So I didn't think there was going to be a lot of opportunity. And with Penny re-signing, so my expectation, I didn't really expect him to even be a factor this season at all. So
that's fair.
Me personally, but
that is a surprise in that sense. Yeah,
so that is a surprise, and he is running better than honestly any other running back in the NFL right now.
Yeah, he's been hot as hell too the last 2 weeks.
Really good.
Yeah. Also, I think I saw we had this debate. I think it was last week's podcast where we were trying to figure out if we call him Kenny, Kenneth, Ken. We didn't really get to the bottom of that, but what I did figure out is somebody on Twitter, because he's number 9, called him K9. And I was like, that's a fucking cool nickname. He's K9. It's pretty good. So I'm going to roll with K9 from now on.
Is it K9 Walker?
K9. I just like K9. I don't even care. You don't even have to say any Walker at all. Just roll with K9. He's had 14 points, 17 points, and 29 the last 3 weeks. He's crushing it. I'll go next with my rookie surprise, and it's not really anybody at the top of the leaderboards per se because he's been hurt recently. But when he did play, Jahan Dotson surprised me because I thought he was going to be ass, and he started off the season very, very hot. Had the 2 touchdown performance week 1, 15 points, then backed it up with another touchdown in week 2, and then against Dallas week 4 had a touchdown as well. So he's had 3 of the 4 weeks he's played. He's had over 10 points. So I thought he really impressed me in an offense that, frankly, I didn't think they were going to sling it around that much. So to see him produce even with Terry McLaurin on the field, and then also them running the ball a lot, he definitely caught me off guard. I was not expecting him to play that well. So kudos to Tibbs for that one so far. Hopefully he can get back on the field soon. He has had a hamstring injury, but that's my biggest surprise. Alex, what do you think?
Well, compared to where the guy I'm picking was drafted in the Dynasty Rookie Draft, I think was a no-brainer. It's going to be Dameon Pierce. Since week 2, he hasn't had less than 11 points.
I mean, that was my other choice for sure.
Model of consistency. Yeah, and of course Dan got him, which is
that's what he does
at this point. Yep,
that's what he does.
He just grabs these talented guys, and yeah, he's looked good. I didn't want to buy into it, but I can't lie with the numbers. He's been solid on a team that's not great, but he still produces. So
There was so much hype between like when we did our rookie draft and the start of the season for Dameon Pierce. I honestly didn't even think about that when I was picking players.
Yeah, it's not even a surprise because everybody just hyped it up so much.
Yeah, once we hit the start of the season, we're like, okay, well, this guy's definitely the best running. He wasn't even playing in the preseason games. Like he was so
Yeah, I
good.
mean, they knew something for sure during the entire offseason. And I mean, we just watched the film. It's crazy that he's doing it against stacked boxes too, because nobody's afraid of their passing attack, and he's still just gashing opposing defenses. So he's playing really well. You can definitely call him a surprise because I think he was a mid second round pick for us, perhaps late second round pick in our draft, I think. And he's been great. So great pick. Let me look up this real quick. He was picked 2.9.
Oh my god.
2.9.
Hurts.
There were some schlubs drafted before him for sure. I think I took John Mechie and Alec Pierce ahead of him, so probably not my best decision. Anywho,
hey, Alec Pierce is good.
He's fine, but he's not Dameon Pierce. Neither is Christian Watson, who we could talk about is my biggest rookie disappointment. Is Christian Watson. I have not been impressed by anything I've seen on the field. Actually, the only thing I really remember him doing at all is dropping that long touchdown pass week 1, and that's the last thing I've heard. I was scared of him heading into the draft. I am not surprised that he's not doing anything, and it's hard to even call him a disappointment because I didn't expect anything from him. But I guess he is a disappointment still. So that's my pick. Alex, who did you pick?
Well, that's 2 for 2 on that one. I also picked Christian Watson. With the not that I try to go by metrics too much, but his drop percentage was absurd going into the season, and he has about as good as opportunity as any rookie this year to make something for himself, and he's done absolutely nothing with it. Like injury
Literally
or not,
like
just nothing. Just Romeo Dobbs. What's the other Packers wide receiver that they grabbed?
Amari Rodgers.
The
rookie from last year is Amari Rodgers. There's also Randall Cobb.
Oh, Samari Toure. There's people hyping up those guys over him. Like, it's just a joke.
Who the fuck is that guy?
I don't even have a cool
last
drop
week.
for
I think
that.
you got a catch. I think you had to catch this last game.
Jeez, I'm gonna go pick him up just based on name alone. Samari
Toure.
Oh my god, sounds like a luxury car.
So I took Watson in the other dynasty league and literally watched him drop that touchdown pass from Rodgers, and I literally traded him 5 minutes later in the Galactic League.
I remember that because I think you traded him to the guy that I was hanging out with. That guy. He's like, "Hey, you just traded me Christian Watson. It seems like a good long-term play." I was like, I'm just gonna hang out and just sit here. I don't know about that. It's funny. The last time that Christian Watson played was week 5, and he had -0.2. So it's just not going well. Sean, did you have Christian Watson as well or no?
I didn't. I took another guy that can't catch the ball. His name is Sky.
Oh man, Skyward.
He went pick 106 in our league.
That is too high.
And he can't get on the field with a receiving core that, frankly, is not amazing. The 49ers would probably tell you otherwise right now, but they're not great. And he can't get on the field. And he can't do the job that he's being asked to do because he's fumbled 2 punts this season.
He has 6 catches for 100 yards this year.
Yeah.
He has 12 targets through 7 weeks.
Yeah.
It's not good.
106, when Chris Olave went the pick after him, that's just brutal to me.
Yeah, that really hurts. That really hurts. I didn't even really consider that. You have that along with you had also. Well, I mean, Jameson Williams. We haven't seen anything, but Jameson Williams went behind him as well, on top of a couple other really good players, Jahan Dotson, whatnot.
And
so
someone traded up for him on top of that.
What did he give up in that deal?
It was like 2 picks or so. I don't remember. I'd have to look it up.
Not a great look.
For Sky Moore.
I mean, if he takes the McCall Hardman track in 3 years, he'll score 3 touchdowns when nobody's starting him. So he'll be good to go.
Hey, I started him.
You started Hardman?
At necessity.
And he was like, I think he had like 30-something% of my. He had like 30% of my points that week, and I only scored 70.
That doesn't count. Your team sucks.
All right. Anyway, well, actually, that brings me to my next point. Who is the Armadillos MVP?
It's Jalen Hurts.
I think we all agree it's Jalen Hurts. But now you could argue it's Mecole Hardman because he was my MVP last week. Yeah, Hurts has been really good, and my team is really bad, and he's kind of my only good player. So we love the performances. We love that he's 24 years old. We really don't love the good performances, if we're being completely honest with you. He's fucked me a couple of times almost already. So
you literally, preparing for this podcast, I had myself arguing against my own self to see if there was anybody else I could pick on your team because I knew both of you were going to pick Hurts. I'm like, I can't even do it.
You can just pick Mecole Hardman. He's had 10 points last week and 24 the other week after.
Who's your kicker?
I had to drop him. I think it's Brett Maher right now. I think that's my MVP. It's bad. All right, let's not spend too much time on that garbage. Let's go to the cheese fries, who also, you might argue, have a lot of garbage too. I think it's going to be Patty. Alex, did you agree with that?
Yep, I have Patty Mahomes.
He is technically the overall one in fantasy right now, but Josh Allen, once again, has taken his bye week already. So
right.
Yeah, it's funny because early in the year, you might have had an argument to be made with London and Garrett Wilson, but neither one of them have done shit since week 2, basically. So, you can't even really loop in some of these rookies somehow. I think Tyler Algier is playing really well too, despite, not getting a ton of carries. He's had, I think, 15 and 16 the last couple of weeks, so he's picking it up. But obviously, Patty's the way to go for that choice. Let's go to the Bombers MVP. Gets a little more interesting here. How about let's turn this one over to Alex.
Well, this is a guy that I thought was going to bust at the beginning of the season, so that was one of the calls I made on the rankings I was really wrong about. That was Josh Jacobs. I think most of the fantasy community watching the preseason was already panicking as much as I did. And he just decided he wanted to play for that next contract. He's like, well, if it's not here, it's somewhere, and he's playing really well. He's RB4 right now. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty good slam dunk. I mean, the other guys Justin has on his team we know they've been good, and we've just been waiting for all of them to put it together. But Josh Jacobs was kind of the surprise for me.
Yeah, I think, Sean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I had Jacobs too. No argument here.
Yeah, I had Jacobs, and then I guess my honorable mention would be Kenny Walker the last few weeks. I mean, he's been winning him weeks with 29, 17-point performances. So, yeah, they've been good. And honestly, those two guys have kind of been holding it over while a few of these disappointing players.
He's still got Chase and Burrow.
Chase and Burrow have really turned it on lately too. So, yeah, if he's got Josh Jacobs, Kenny Walker rolling out for the next few weeks and towards the end of the year, it's gonna be a little scary if they keep on this pace. So, good for the Bombers, 6-1, good start to the season. Let's go to the next one, and it is the Muskrats at 4-3. Sean, who do you think the Muskrats MVP is?
That would be your MVP for the league, and that's Nick Chubb, because
that's fair to say.
He's great. Great running back.
Pretty good.
Mr. Consistency over there.
Alex, do you agree with that?
Yeah, it was Chubb for me.
Are you sure it wasn't Chuba Hubbard?
Definitely was not.
Chuba Hubbard?
But it could be by the end of the season.
Oh, it could be. He loved that 46% snap share. He loves it.
Well, I don't know when he got hurt.
Right now.
Do you know when he got hurt? Sean?
I don't know at all.
Hubbard, you told me he had an ankle injury. I don't remember what part of the game. I've been trying to look at the play-by-play because I watched the beginning of the game, and then when he scored the touchdown, I just put the phone down because I was like, I got what I wanted. And I'm not sure when Deontay Foreman started getting all the carries. So I'm not sure. I was wondering if that was happening after the ankle injury, or was Deontay Foreman getting carries?
The report that came out, I think it was either early in the second half or the end of the first half. I don't remember exactly, but the report that came out said he felt like he could have gone back in the game if they needed him to.
Gotcha. Well, I just
not practicing right now, so
I was just wondering if Foreman was getting more carries because he went out with the injury, and had he stayed in the game, he would have had the bulk of it. So that's why I wasn't sure. But
Right. Foreman looked good too, though, so they still might split it a little bit, but I don't know.
that's okay.
Yeah, obviously Chubb was my choice as well. I think we didn't really talk about it on the. I think there's an honorable mention for biggest rookie disappointment. I think it's Treylon Burks. We didn't even really mention that
He
earlier,
got
but
hurt.
he
Yeah.
wasn't early in the year though. He had 4 games where he didn't do dick.
He did
Well, I can't
actually
play.
did pretty well with the snap share that he got. That's the only reason I didn't consider it, because he wasn't really getting on the field that much, but he was doing some things on the
First
field.
2 weeks, yeah. The weeks 3 and 4, he played almost 70% and did literally nothing. So I wasn't a big fan.
Well, the Buffalo game, he was on pace to get that week. I made that bet. He was on pace for 100. He was at 50 something at the first half, and then the
And then they got outscored by
Titans
40.
decided to
And then
turn
they
the
got
ball
Ryan
over.
Tannehill.
Right. So that kind of screwed that. But were you going back? Are we doing the rookie disappointment?
No, I wasn't going back. I just saw on your
Oh.
team as I was going through. I mean, unless you want to go back and talk about somebody, I'm cool with that too.
No. I'm just trying to see where. No, we already. Okay, no, we're good.
Yeah, we mentioned Christian Watson was not our fan, so I just wanted to bring that up because I think he was like an honorable mention for me in that category. Okay, look, we know that Nick Chubb is your MVP. Let's move on to the Lionheads at 3 and 4. Who is the MVP for this one, Alex?
I went with Christian Kirk. He's
Okay.
been consistent. He's not blowing you away with numbers, but he's wide receiver 9 right now in fantasy. And this was a guy that Vince wasn't. I don't know. Most people weren't expecting anything out of because of the Jaguars' offense, but he's been pretty solid. Like you're gonna get out of Cooper Kupp, you're gonna get out of Deebo Samuel, but he's been a solid wide receiver, and that no one's really talking about, or at least not enough.
Do you know what you're going to get out of Deebo Samuel?
He was wide receiver 10 on the year. I didn't think he was that high.
Yeah, he's still having a good year. It's just he was just so
basically
explosive.
getting 9 points as his floor.
Yeah, scoring
he's
is
not
also
really
down this year,
crushing.
so it probably feels like a bigger disparity than last year.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Cooper Kupp is the pretty obvious choice of MVP.
Yep.
I mean, he's pretty much a lock for 10 points or more every single week, and then sprinkle in a couple of big games too with the 19, 20 point 20-point performance games. He's really good.
He's a wide receiver 3, and he's had a bye week already. He's still the wide receiver.
He's ridiculous, and he just gets hyper targeted every week. So he's a great choice for MVP. Let's go to our next team, and it is the Long Gamers at 4 and 3. Alex, who do you think the Long Gamers MVP is?
Well, I was going through some of the players and the numbers, and I think Lamar Jackson, I would say, and in addition to that is when he does play well, Sean wins his games. When he does not play well, he loses. Now, with the exception of playing Tibbs 1 week, there was I think it was week 5 because I wrote all this down here, and he had a subpar game from Lamar Jackson, but that's only because Tibbs, between his tight end, his 3 flex spots, his kicker, and his defense, would have combined 8.5 points. But
Not great.
But Jackson, if he's playing well, like that's a W for Sean's team. So it's something to think about, as you're going through the season. Maybe that's why you got the Dak trade. But
yeah, I think I agree that obviously early on in the season, Lamar was lighting it up, and it was pretty much a lock for a win every week. It's been a little slower lately, but the Dak is nice insurance as well, just in case anything happens. I went with Tyreek Hill, and I think it's mostly because it's not that Tyreek Hill is really impressing me out of the ordinary. It's the fact that he's just doing it on a different team. I mean, he's really fucking good. But I was concerned with the Dolphins situation at receiver with Waddle already being there. Could Tua support both guys? Will Tyreek Hill end up arrested on South Beach? Anything was possible. And the fact that it's ended up the way it has been exceeded my expectations, and he's the wide receiver 4 on the year, and he's had a couple of monster games. So I think he could easily be the MVP too if he didn't give it to if you didn't want to give it to Jackson. Sean, which one would you give it to at this point?
I wrote down Tyreek Hill.
Was your reasoning any different than mine? Or
he's leading the league in receiving yards. That's a good start, and he's done it with literally Teddy Bridgewater. I don't even remember the other guy's name still.
Skylar Thompson?
I didn't even
reach for the Skylar.
That's impressive, man. He does it with everybody. He can just do it with anybody.
I mean, he's already at 773 yards.
I was friggin' roaming around the league trying to trade him away this offseason too.
Yeah, and nobody wanted him.
We decided, we both sat down, we're like, listen, I said, Tyreek, no stupid shit on South Beach and you can stick around. And he put in the work.
He's doing what you asked.
We're doing it. Yeah.
He's been a model citizen so far. Let's go to the next team, and it's wow. Who could you choose on this team? It's the lamppost. It could be anybody. I mean, this team is just on fire. I think Travis Kelce we already talked about as a pretty obvious MVP for even the whole league. You guys have anybody different than Kelce on this team? Except maybe even Allen too. We have Allen and Kelce. You got anybody different?
Mine was Kelce, so that was.
I took Josh Allen for the whole league, so I mean I can.
And then we talked about Pierce too. I mean, he's been great. It's tough. There's really nobody else that I mean.
Pretty funny when Justin Jefferson and Devontae Adams are on your team and they didn't even get mentioned.
Just not even sniffing the MVP race at wide receiver 5, and I think is Devontae's 6. It's like not even in the MVP race on this ridiculous team. I thought Lazard has played pretty well too when he's played, but obviously not MVP level, but he's been really good too. Just lots of choices for this team. And I believe, I think there was a week this year where Dan started 3 tight ends. I think he started Kelce, Ertz, and Andrews at one point. I could be wrong on that, but I thought I saw it at some point, which is pretty wild. I don't think anybody's ever done that.
Ertz is going to be your top 10 tight end, right?
He's number 5. Yeah, he's been just rock solid, getting 4 points or more every week.
He's got the tight end 1, 2, and 5 on his team.
That's pretty wild.
Now, I'm not sure how long he's had this particular player, but Daniel Carson, the kicker, for the Raiders.
I've never seen him miss a kick.
He's had 1 game with 9 points, and all of them have been 10 and above.
Oh, we'll give it to him then.
Yeah.
You know what? What were we thinking? It was Daniel Carson the whole way.
I thought about giving you the Cowboys defense.
They've been phenomenal.
Yeah, they've been really appreciated.
You're really loving that Dan Quinn action for sure. All right, let's go to the next team, and we got the Lionheads MVP. They are 3-4. Alex, who did you give to this one?
We already did this one.
Yeah, we did
Lionheads.
Yeah,
we sure did. Let's go to the Lambs then.
Or the Lambs too. Well, the Lambs. Okay, so I have Mr. Austin Eckler. He's RB2 right now in fantasy.
Funny, we wouldn't have said that early in the year.
Right? Yeah. He just decided to put it together. They were like, "Wait a second, we have this guy."
We forgot we have this guy,
and we need to play him, and we need to give him the ball as much as possible. So
it's like if you had Dan on your Pop Stanzel football team or whatever, and you just didn't throw him the ball, and you're like, whoa, hold on a second, Dan is on this team. It's ridiculous.
Yes, it's not utilizing your best player, in my opinion, in your offense. So, yeah, he's been really good, and he almost cost me the matchup this last week at the end of that game, and it was a 10-point swing, just a 1 touchdown. So, yeah, he's been great.
I was going to give this one. Obviously, Eckler's played phenomenal. I was going to give this one to Christian McCaffrey because I think, from the expectations that people had earlier in the year, obviously we know he's talented. Can he stay healthy? He's done everything you could ask for, basically, on that garbage ass team, and thankfully he's off of it now. I think he's just been rock solid the whole year. I think he's had no games less than 10 up until last week when he got traded, and I think he still had like 6 last week, but he's just been so rock solid. And frankly, James, in order to compete in this league, needs these top 3 running backs, McCaffrey, Mixon, and Eckler, all to play well in order for him to win the championship again. And he's getting it right now. Out of those 2, Mixon has been a little bit more sluggish, but he's still playing fine as well. I think he's in the top 15 as well. So he's got 3 top 15 running backs, and that's what he needs. So I gave him the MVP. Sean, did you have anybody different?
No, I had McCaffrey just because the consistency, and especially being on that Panthers team, being consistent on that team is impressive. So I went with them, similar to like how I went with Tyreek, just because he's been doing it with whatever's around him. So I like that.
Yeah, he's been pretty damn good. And Dan just commented, did it twice, I think. So he started 3 tight ends twice this year, apparently. It's pretty wild. And I don't think anybody's done it before.
Yeah. I think I did my first year back in the league, but that wasn't because
just out of necessity. Just Ian Pisano.
Like, these guys might score a touchdown. Let me throw them out there.
Oh, Jesus. All right, the last team we have to get to, I believe, is the Battle Axes. Sean, who's the Battle Axes MVP for you?
Saquon Barkley. Consistency. I think there's an argument to be had for Derrick Henry, but I think he started just a little bit slow, and Barkley's just kind of been doing it all year. And honestly, he's been so good. He's literally carrying that offense in real football. So he's been great.
I mean, we did the film study on him, and it's literally been that for the entirety of the season. I mean, he's been pretty much rock solid all year, and he just looks explosive again, and that's really what I wanted to see. I was just like, can this guy even be a shell of his former self? But I gave my MVP to Stephon Diggs. He's the wide receiver 1 right now. He had a couple of, like, I guess you can call them dud weeks at 62 yards and 74 yards, but the rest of the time it's been target fest. He's had over 10 targets in like every single game. He's tied to one of the best quarterbacks in fantasy. So, I always kind of considered, like, talent wise, I think Stephon Diggs is like in that 5 to 7 range, which always kind of leads to me not thinking about him as a top, fantasy wide receiver. But the guy's he's so solid, and he plays in such a good offense. Like, I think my opinion of him as a top 5 receiver in the NFL is pretty cemented in at this point. Alex, do you have anybody different?
No, Saquon Barkley for me, RB3. We knew the talent was there. We just needed him to be healthy, and so we're getting. It's been good. I will say, you said that was the last one, but I think we're missing the elk.
I do not see the elk in my list, so that is helpful. I think everybody just forgot about that team. So I think unfortunately they may have slipped off the radar.
He was on your podcast last week.
We forgot about that guy.
I can throw his out there for me. I picked Chris Olave for his team. He's just been consistent for a rookie, which is very impressive. So with him, there's a couple other people I could have gone with, but I think he's traded them at this point, so I didn't really want to pick them.
Yeah, he's definitely moved off a few of these guys. I don't want to harp on biggest rookie disappointment that much more, but James Cook could easily be in that category. I mean, he hasn't really done anything either.
Considered him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know I'm not really sure how you don't pick Olave. He's wide receiver 17 on the year. Bateman has been a pretty big disappointment recently. I wouldn't pick him at this point. Freiermuth, he's tight end 11. He's not an MVP.
He also just got him on his team. He's only been on this team.
He just arrived.
Yeah, it's hard to even. You could argue that Curtis Samuel has been an MVP. He's been way better than I expected this year. But Alex, do you have anybody?
I went Chris Olave 3 for 3. It was pretty easy. Too easy. And I'm hitting myself again because I not only did it once, but I did it twice now, where the rookie coming out of the draft, he does everything well, but he's not great at anything. That was what they said about Justin Jefferson
and Terry McLaurin.
And then now I got Chris Olave, and I'm like, well, I don't want the guy that's going to be like a wide receiver 2 on his team. Like, give me the upside. And got burned again. And got
those guys just work out.
Yeah.
You got to follow the capital, Alex. The Saints literally like 7 picks for him.
Well, I also follow the draft capital on Henry Ruggs. Well, I didn't draft him, but I went after him, and look how that
worked out wonderfully. Yeah, you can't always follow the draft capital because sometimes NFL teams are dumb. It just happens. Like, who was that jackass that the 49ers drafted? Like, it was a long time ago. A.J. Jenkins in the first round. I mean, he did nothing, literally nothing. And he was like, I think he was the late first round. He could have been a second round pick basically, but still, like, you can't always follow the draft capital because some of these guys just suck. The NFL teams are so dumb. Not John Brown. Who is that little speedster on the Bengals? John Ross.
Oh, John.
Perfect example. You just can't. You can't do it every time.
Yeah, but in this case, they traded multiple picks just to get him. It wasn't just like where they took him in the draft.
Yeah. They gave up, and it was considerable draft cap. At the time, we were like, what the hell are they doing? I'm still kind of saying that, to be honest with you.
Trust me, the Eagles are reaping the benefits.
Yeah, I think, aren't they? It's going to be a top 10 pick this year, probably. It's
if they keep losing.
I'd
That's why I'm pissed. They're not starting Jameis. They're starting Andy Dalton. They announced it today.
Yep.
Jesus Christ.
I'm not. I mean, I'm fine with either. But
yeah, I mean, they're both not going to. I mean, that team is kind of fucked right now.
We have their second round pick in the 2024 draft too.
You love to see that too. That's probably going to be high as well. All right, let's move forward here to the breakout fantasy star. I think mine. I'll kick it off with Dameon Pierce. I think he's just really just turned into. I mean, he's like you said, Sean. He's not like an overnight sensation. Like we've been talking about him, but he's been so solid. Really, he already had a bye week. He's RB16, and he had a dud week 1 with like 3 points, and the rest of the time it's been over 16, 11, 20, 17, 11. He's been pretty much rock solid RB1 without the bar, if you don't consider the bye week. Do you have anybody different, Sean?
So I went with no one.
Wow.
I don't like nobody has done it from start to now. There's been people that like Kenneth Walker has broken out like in the last couple weeks, but like this is just more or less me to take my time to just complain about how kind of boring this season has been compared to previous years. Scoring is down. Like it just doesn't feel like as exciting. There's not that guy that like Breece Hall was getting there to where he was probably going to be that guy that I picked. And then he just goes down with an injury. And it's a bummer. But I just like the guys that we were expecting to be huge, like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, like the top few running backs, receivers, like it feels right. But there's not that, it doesn't feel like there's that guy that's really like going off and like the whole year.
Yeah, it's funny even if you look at like the running back like rankings, like a lot of the top, redraft guys, Kamara, Cook, I'm trying to think of a few other ones like Mixon, Najee Harris, Jonathan Taylor, like all those guys, like the scoring is just down. Like it's not even, I would say like probably 60 to 70% of the first round of a redraft league is just down this year unless you took a quarterback or a wide receiver. It's just, it's a weird year.
I don't know if it's just teams mixing their backs and their receivers more than usual, or if it's like the shell defenses that defenses are playing now where there's not really a lot of like huge plays. Like the only huge play I can think of was the Gabe Davis touchdown.
Yeah, you don't see a lot like I'm sure you guys are watching Red Zone. You don't see a lot of like red zone like, oh my God, look at this play. Like it's usually like, oh, here's another 20-yard catch. Like here's a 15-yard catch. It's not like, oh my God, what the hell's going on in that game? Like
I can remember like the last couple of years, like, oh, Scott Hansen's like, oh my God, we got like 3 red alerts to catch you up on from these other games. And like, I don't feel like there's any of that this year. They're like, oh, well, they're in the red zone. And like, we're already watching the game that is happening instead of like, oh shit, we need to go to this game instead and watch what just happened.
Maybe it's because it's the first year back from the COVID year. Defenses have gotten better, perhaps. I don't know.
Is it Von Miller's pass rush academy? Is that what's doing it? I don't know.
I thought there was a tight end U. That's not fucking working.
Offensive line.
Where's tight end U? Ain't doing shit. There's like 2 good ones. They're making the other guys worse.
Is there like 3 teams with good offensive lines? Like I don't know. I don't know what's going on. It's weird.
It's very puzzling.
Who's running that tight end? Is it Kelsey and Kittle? They're just hogging it all?
George Kittle literally sang a song for National Tight End Day, and he can't fucking run a tight end camp? What the fuck?
I mean, he's stunk too this year. He hasn't done shit until this week.
Yeah,
he's hurting himself.
Fuck me.
Maybe he's running all that tight end use shit. Maybe he's just killing himself. The only one that's actually listening apparently is Kelsey. All right, let's keep this moving on.
Oh, I wanted to kind of piggyback off Sean. He mentioned Breece Hall. That was my guy for breakout star, obviously minus the injury. He was about less than 2 points from being RB5 ahead of Derrick Henry for the season. And this is on a team that everyone was expecting to be bad. Zach Wilson, all that jazz. All the wide receivers were going to get a lot of the attention. Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, but no, it was essentially the offense was running through Breece Hall. Once they, where they're like, oh yeah, we should probably give him as many carries as possible. yeah, he was performing well. It's a shame that he got hurt, but it was looking good.
Yeah, and at his peak, he was only getting like 65% of the snap share because of Carter still there. So it could have even been more if Carter hadn't been around too. So he was crushing it with even limited touches. Cool. So let's go to some of the fun. Oh,
I
sorry, go
will
ahead.
say one other thing. I think it's because we're, as a group, so tuned in to fantasy at this point. It's so hard for us to be like shocked and surprised by a guy like breaking out, because we all know even like what opportunity everybody's going to get at this point. The like it's almost like the mystery gets taken away a little bit from fantasy football. So it's a little harder to be like, oh my god, this guy is like crazy. He's breaking out. Like I did not see this coming. Like I don't know.
Yeah, it would basically have to be like somebody that coming out of the like our supplemental draft, or like a 4th-round pick that's like, holy shit, like a Samori Torre or whoever this guy is.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know who that guy is, but if he like broke out, I'd be like, wow, that's incredible. Like good for him. Like that would be a breakout surprise for us now. But because even our draft, we're 4 rounds deep and then 3 rounds in the supplemental. Like nobody's really slipping by us at this point. Like we're kind of covering everybody. So I do agree in that sense. All right, let's go to a couple of fun ones to finish up here. So this one, it's a little open-ended as to what you want to make it, but it's the best PHU Dynasty manager for the first half of the season. I think you could factor in a lot of different things here. You could factor in, how well the team is doing, potentially in-season moves like trades and free agency pickups. It kind of is what you want it to be. So I kind of left this open-ended. So I want to hear what you guys have to think. So Alex, who is your choice for the best PHU Dynasty manager?
Well, I didn't want to be biased and pick myself, obviously. So I just went with the low hanging fruit. I went with Scavelli. He just year in and year out, he's always been a model of consistency. He's always in the championship run. Um, every time I look at his team, I think, oh well, it looks like they're going to be falling off that cliff, and then it just doesn't happen. His team's been solid. And he stays in it each and every week. So it's hard to argue that.
Yeah, when he's 5-2 and he has Tom Brady and Russell Wilson as his quarterbacks, and he's still just chugging along.
Yeah,
It's a testament to how good his team is. I mean, Henry and of course making the offseason move for Barkley was a pretty big move for that team. So he's making the right moves. It's what seems to be at the right times. Sean, who's your choice?
I'm going with Justin. Honestly, kind of because he's like the opposite of me at this point. Like he has made like very little moves, and for what has happened with his team the last couple years, I think it could have been like a pretty easy, understandable overreaction. Just been like, well, like I'm getting fucked like every year. Like something happens, my team is good, but I keep losing games, and just be like, fuck it, make moves and try and do something different. And he's just kind of stuck with it, and it's paying off now. I mean, his team is great. It's put up 200 points on these damn armadillos. They can't catch a break. So I went with Justin.
Justin, like you said, he's stayed the course. He's been very shrewd, and not trading his draft picks, and not trading those draft picks has ended up working out really well for him in the past couple of years. Kenny Walker this year, Jamar Chase and Pitts the year before. Looks like 3 studs right there. So, I mean, you can. I think earlier in the year we were talking about, maybe this is the time for the Bombers to make a deal. Every time we say that, it kind of just ends up working out best if he just doesn't do it. So, you might be thinking about the Bombers making, let's see if he can get a deal for a running back. Well, then he has Kenny Walker show up, and then Josh Jacobs blows up. So I think he knows his players better than we do at this point. So that's a good thing. I was also going to go with the Bombers, but because you chose the Bombers, I'm going to choose somebody else, and I'm going to choose somebody that could be considered the best and the worst dynasty manager right now. And I think it's the Kentucky Elk and Dustin Gilchrist. I am so proud of him for making that. And listen, he's the best because it took. I mean, he finally made the decision to start moving some guys and rebuilding a little bit. Now, I think it's the worst time to do it, but I also think it's the best on him to actually get it done, because I wasn't sure if it was ever going to happen. It's been years we've been talking about this. So I give him the kudos for realizing that the ship was sinking a bit here, and it's time we got to start doing something. And I've liked the moves that he's made. I thought he hasn't really gotten bad value on any of the deals he's made at this point. And frankly, with what's available to trade for, I think he's made good deals. So, I think the Baton Rouge Bombers are pretty clearly one of the better choices. And then obviously the lamppost. I wasn't gonna pick the lamppost because everybody knows. I mean, it's just a boring pick, right? It's like, come on, you pick the lamppost. So I'm not doing it. But we all know he's doing great stuff over there. So let's get to what might be my favorite category. And this isn't really related to Dynasty, but more or less the NFL as a whole. What is the biggest NFL shit show this year? Because God, there are too many to this.
Go ahead, Alex. You look like you're ready.
Oh no, Eric's frozen. I don't.
Oh, there we go. We're back. Sorry about that.
Okay. Go Denver.
Alex says Denver.
Just everything Denver. This was the offense that was one quarterback away. We got rid of Drew Lock. We got Russell Wilson, Super Bowl.
Fun fact: it was Geno Smith, not Russell Wilson.
Did I say Geno?
No.
Oh.
One quarterback away was Geno.
Right. Yeah, and it's just been a shit show. It's unbelievable. Like, I just don't have lots for words for that offense and who they've been utilizing and not utilizing. Like, and even with Javonte Williams going down, like, Melvin Gordon now ready to go, right? And they're like, let's just not give him the ball. Let's just get this guy off the street and let's just let him get a bunch of carries.
And not to mention, they paid to have him come back, and they just said, "Nah, we ain't gonna do it." It makes no sense. And then on top of that, you have Russ doing Subway commercials where he's like, "It's spicy." Like, what are we doing out here? Like, it's so bad. I mean, that was. I think that's the obvious number one choice for biggest NFL shit show. I mean, they're the biggest laughing stock in the league right now, and it's funny because they're not even really the worst team. They're not even close to the worst team.
Their fans were counting down the clock for them so they wouldn't get a false start.
It's so bad. They were leaving the game at that. Was it the Colts game where it was overtime and they just left? Like, they didn't even want to stay to watch the game.
I can't remember what player was getting interviewed, but somebody was asking them if they heard the fans counting down the play clock. And he's like, "Yeah, I heard that. That was actually really helpful."
Oh my God.
This isn't real life.
Don't say that.
Come to Denver where your fan interactions are the best in the NFL. Be a part of the action.
You could be a coach, basically. You could be the on-field manager. It's
throw out some Madden plays for them.
Watch
them run it.
A disaster.
Why is there not a coaching position where it's literally just game management? I know that's supposed to be the head coach. I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, that's like part of their job. But I also think there should be like a designated position for that, right? Like, if you're an NFL team, take that pressure off of the head coach maybe, and just have a guy that like whispers it in his ear. It's like, "Hey, we should probably do this." Like, just make a guy, because they already have a guy that like holds Sean McVay back from the sideline, like the get back guy. Just make that guy the guy. Just like anybody can do it. It's like, okay, there's 2 minutes left. Let's run the hurry up. Let's fucking try. Like, it's instead of just, it's not hard to do. The guy that runs the timeouts, what a disaster. That team is a joke.
So many coaches in the NFL need a guy.
There's a lot of teams that need a guy for sure. Sean, what is your biggest shit show? The Broncos?
I had 3. I'm gonna go.
I also had 3 too, just in case. So
I had the Broncos, I had the Bucks, and then the third one I had was concussions, because the way Miami handled that situation has created a ripple effect that absolutely fucked me this week with Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Sure did.
He wasn't actually concussed.
No.
The game.
Gotta have him back.
And I'm torn because, like, I want to win a fantasy game, but I don't want this guy to have CTE. So, like, I am conflicted morally about it, but, like, the NFL and the Dolphins have done such a poor job of all of this that it is very frustrating to watch. So I went with concussions just because that was literally, I think that's been the biggest story in the NFL so far this season.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against that. I mean, we've heard so much about it, and then now you're hearing, I mean, every week it seems like they're cutting to somebody in red zone where this guy's got a concussion, this guy's got a concussion. They're definitely taking more seriously now, but it took the 2 injury to do it basically.
We literally thought Chris Olave like died for a second.
I thought he died like 3 times that night because he got hit like 4 or 5 times and got knocked out like at least twice.
And he didn't come out.
They just kept throwing him back in there. It's like, all right.
I feel like there's a movie made about concussions in the NFL and
tell the truth.
Right. I guess they didn't watch that.
Did you actually ever see that movie? It's pretty good.
No, I haven't. Yeah, no, I haven't. But I would think that would be.
Fun to see Will Smith try and do an African accent, which is weird to say, but it's very interesting.
Huh. Next Black Panther, huh? Too soon.
You might slap the shit out of
It's too late.
Yeah, I think if before the slap you might have had a shot.
They can make Chris Rock the bad guy in the next Black Panther movie.
I'd watch the hell out of that. They would have my money immediately.
So many people were trying to get them to co-host the Oscars next year, and I thought that would be such a good idea. They get so many people to watch that.
I would love it. I'd eat it right up.
I'd start recording it now. Eric,
speaking of shit shows, my biggest shit show is the Indianapolis Colts because they don't know what the fuck they're doing, and I love it. It's one of my favorite teams because I always really think that for the last 3 or 4 years they've had such an underrated defense. They get to the quarterback great. DeForest Buckner's awesome. Darius Leonard's awesome. They have good cornerbacks. Like they're a good defense, and it's just
Shaquille Leonard now.
Oh, I'm sorry, Shaquille Leonard. Apologize. But they get it done on defense, and if they just had an answer at quarterback, I mean, they're totally cursed by Andrew Luck. I mean, clearly since he's left, they have not been able to find a solution. I thought Phillip Rivers was decent, but that was a 1-year deal, and everybody knew it. But Wentz to Matt Ryan, I mean, you just get dud to dud, and they've invested so much money and get draft capital into that. It's just so bad. And now I think they're 3-4. I don't even think they're like totally out of it. I think they're kind of in the hunt still, and it's like now we're going to Sam Ellinger.
They're 3-3-1.
Yeah, so they're like 500, and like they're right around. They're in the playoff hunt for sure. So it's like it's just such an odd move to. I mean, unless Matt Ryan is just totally fucking shot, and they just don't even. I mean, even Foles is a better option, and they just go straight to Ellinger. It's like, hey, I mean, you basically waved the white flag on the season.
I like the move to Ellinger just because he's very mobile.
Yeah, I mean, they need it though.
Offensive line is fucking terrible.
And that's another story is how fast that offensive line has totally tanked because they were so good a few years ago with Anthony Costanzo and Mark Lewinsky and Quentin Nelson. I mean, they had guys there, and then now it's a joke. Like they suck now.
They have a decent amount, mainly because of Nelson, but they have a good amount of money like in their offensive line, mostly for
a ton. Yeah,
their left tackle situation was bad, like going into the offseason, and they didn't do anything to address it.
They did nothing. They did literally nothing.
Like,
then they signed the most immobile quarterback I can think of.
Yeah.
It's a rough situation, but I mean,
I think if you run RPO, which Frank Reich loves to run RPO with a mobile quarterback, I think that's gonna, for me personally, I love that because I think it's gonna help Jonathan Taylor out a lot.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I think this hurts the receivers for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't, from a running game perspective, it's the best way for the Colts to function as an offense at this point at any sort of level, and it also kind of gives them the backdoor out to tanking if he sucks ass, where they can just be like, hey, we gave it a shot, and now we're 5-13, and they can just draft the quarterback. Like that works too. So,
do you think anybody would throw like a late round pick at the Colts for Matt Ryan? Is there a team out there you think would?
No. I mean, based on, I think I saw a report yesterday that like pretty much like most of the NFL pro scouts think his arm is just totally toast. So I think it's over. And truly, I can't think of a sadder way for Matt Ryan's career to end than this. Like, I mean, he's been such a solid quarterback for so long. It actually makes me feel bad. And he's a really good guy too. So it's just like, damn, it's like, this is how he's going to go out without just a little whimper and getting benched for Sam Ellinger. It's like, man, that sucks. But at the end of the day, if he doesn't have his arm is blown out, it's blown out. It's that simple. But I didn't see him make one long throw this year, like one decent long throw. Mm-hmm. So I'm not totally surprised. But okay, so we got Denver, we got Indianapolis, concussions, Bucks. for biggest NFL shit show. There's a lot. And there's probably even more that we're not even talking about, but we can talk about that another time. But thank you guys for hopping on this podcast, episode 37 again, Midseason Awards. We will hopefully be back next week for a week 8 wrap up. Anything you guys want to say before we head out?
You're going down this week.
Oh boy, we got some big matchups this week.
Yeah, it's our matchup.
Saw is ready.
is it going to be Macho Man this all week?
Hell yeah, brother. All right, we're out.
Yeah, I think we got your guys is a good matchup. The Lamppost against the Lambs, I think, is an underrated matchup for sure. And then the Bombers are playing the Elk in what should be a pretty handed win there. And then I think a dark horse team to win this week is the Cheese Fries against the Lionheads. I think that's the one you got to watch out for. You never know.
Vince does not like hearing that at all.
The only problem is the Cheese Fries do not have Patrick Mahomes on a bye. So wait a second. Never mind. He's not going to win. I lied. That's not happening. And then the Army. What's that?
He's going to put up like 40 points this week.
Oh man, we should get James a Dynabook over under like 60 points. That's tough. That's tough.
Hammer the under.
I don't know. I'm not feeling good about that at all. On the positive side is that he doesn't have to start Sky Moore because he's also on a bye. The Armadillos play the Battle Axes this week in what should be an absolute destruction of the Armadillos, unfortunately. So it's another week where we're going to lose by 125.
Armadillo versus Axes. I wonder which one would win.
It's not. I think you have to go with the Axes there, Sean. And I saw that Tibbs just picked up Diami Brown. Interesting. Oh, what? He picked up Diami Brown 1 week after having a 5% snap share. That's big time. Big time stuff right there.
His insider information. He knows
I don't know what podcast he's listening to, but I think it's the wrong one.
At least the same ones that tell about Sky Moore.
Oh, no. All right. On that note, we're going to end this thing. It was a pleasure having you guys on. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Thank you.
See you.